usual about what's going on in this game.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome back to another edition of the Elias Game Plan. I'm sitting here again today with Randy Robles. We have 4 teams left in the quest for the Stanley Cup. The Eastern Conference Finals start tonight. Game 1 of the Western Conference Final was last night. And there is no one else to talk hockey with at Elias than Randy Robles. So, Randy, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great. So, like I said, Western Conference Finals kicked off last night. If you missed it, please go check out the highlights. I know Randy saw it, but it was a wild one. We saw 14 goals scored between the two teams, Colorado Avalanche and the Edmonton Oilers. We saw 4 goalies, so a couple goalie changes, which we don't always see in the playoffs. Randy, is this what we can expect for the rest of the series?
Yeah, I think so. It was predicted to be a high-scoring series. It was probably the most anticipated series of these playoffs. Not just because of the high scoring, caliber of both teams, but also like the actual individual scores in each team. You had Nathan MacKinnon, number 1 overall pick, 6 or 7 years ago for Colorado, and then you had McDavid, who was the number 1 pick in 2015, and you have 2 guys that are both 26 years old or under. I think McDavid's 25, McKinnon's 26. So it's just so rare to have 2 guys at the absolute peak of their primes facing off in the penultimate round of the playoffs. I mean, this is whoever wins this goes to the final, which is like, the dream, right? So I think what's so intriguing is that this is probably the first series that I can remember where it's defined by the two stars. Like everyone's saying this is McDavid versus MacKinnon.
Right.
It's the first time I've heard that probably since 2009 when you had Crosby and Ovechkin in their primes back then.
Right.
And so this is sort of like a throwback to them. But these series are very rare, and and then even more rare is when you say, oh man, there's going to be 1 million goals, all the star power, and then it actually happens like it did in Game 1, as you said, 14 goals.
Yeah,
it's amazing. So yeah, just buckle up and not a lot of goaltending, but a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Here's the sense I got heading into this series, because you mentioned Connor McDavid, who I'm not sure anybody would say is not the best player on the planet at this point. But the Oilers haven't made a very deep playoff run with him, right? This is his first trip to the conference finals.
Yes.
They've always seemed to have fallen short. And then on the other side is the Avalanche, who expectations seem sky high, right? They won the President's Trophy last season. The year before, they were expected to make a deep playoff run, and they've sort of fizzled out in the last few playoffs. They got MacKinnon. They got Cal Maker, is probably the best defenseman on the planet now, if not one of.
Yeah.
So do you get the sense that the Avalanche have a little bit more pressure on them?
Yeah. Wow, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I think that they're both teams are in their windows of opportunity. As you say, Colorado's probably a little bit later into their window, just because of the expectation, like you mentioned. However, Makar is just, in his one of his, he's very, very early on in his career. So he's got a window that's a little bit more, or that's going to extend their window. But, MacKinnon is 26. They've had Landeskog and Mikko, Rantanen is also very young as well, all under 25. So yeah, it does seem like it's like the window's closing, but in reality, it's right there. It's open. I mean, it's there, and it will be there for a few more years. But having said that, you still got to climb through that window, and they haven't done it yet. And it seems like they're poised to do it this year. So maybe the pressure's a little bit higher on them, like you say, because of expectations over the last couple of years. But I think both teams are right in the heart of their windows to win the Stanley Cup.
So speaking of teams that are in their prime on the Eastern Conference side, we've got the Rangers and the Lightning. Lightning, back-to-back champions already, looking to become the first team to win 3 in a row since my beloved New York Islanders.
Yeah.
In the early 80s, a team I did not get to enjoy. But it feels like the Rangers are sort of just entering that window too, right? The expectations are almost entirely on the Lightning here, and the Rangers not sure they were even supposed to be here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you talk to anybody, especially around these parts of the Elias Sports Bureau head office is in Manhattan. So we get a lot of chatter about the Rangers, of course. And you would think, talking to everyone that I talk to, feel like Tampa Bay is an overwhelming favorite in this series.
Yeah.
However, both teams had the exact same amount of points during the regular season. They both had, both had 110 points. So they both had great seasons. So it's not like it's a real David and Goliath. And the Rangers had more wins, regulation wins. So they actually have home ice advantage. It's going to be a lot closer than I think people might think, just because the Rangers are, I think, a little better than, or should. I think it should be a fair, almost a coin toss to see who wins this. I don't think Tampa Bay should be favored at all.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now I have one stat I want to give you that this will blow your mind. And people ask about, okay, the Rangers are coming off a grueling 7-game series, right?
Yep.
Tampa Bay coming off a 4-game sweep of Florida. So Tampa Bay is rested. They've had over 10 days, I believe, at this point, without playing. Rangers exhausted. However, if you look at the last 7 times this kind of matchup has happened in the NHL, in other words, one team coming off a 7-game series, one team coming off a sweep, the last 7 times this has happened, going back 25 years or so, the team coming off the 7-game series has won all 7 series.
Really?
Yeah. So there's a massive competitive advantage in hockey, at least lately, to being battle tested, to being, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a chemistry mesh. Maybe it's learning to face adversity. Like the Rangers have now won 5 games in these playoffs when facing elimination. Okay, Tampa Bay's had 1. They had the game 7 against Toronto.
Right.
I'm sorry, they had 2. They were down also in game 6. But the Rangers have had much more adversity, and I think that translates into, I don't know, some sort of level of chemistry that you need to win the Stanley Cup. So I think it's going to be an amazing series. Can't wait for it to start tonight.
That's really interesting. You hear that all the time, right? Well rested, they have the advantage, but maybe it's like an iron sharpens iron that the Rangers had to go through those 2 7-game series. I think it's fair to say that the Cup's the toughest trophy in sports to get, right? It's what a grueling tournament to get through. I wonder if that benefited the Rangers in some way to face that adversity early.
Yeah, and the beauty is we're going to find out. We're going to find out as early as tonight.
Yeah. Other interesting thing to note: we're probably not going to see 4 goalies in this one, right? We know the 2. These are no doubt number 1 superstars: Andrei Vasilevsky for the Lightning, Igor Shesterkin for the Rangers. So where we saw a near football score last night. I wouldn't anticipate the same, but Randy, you tell me.
Oh, Jimmy, I absolutely agree with you. You had probably the 2 best goalies in the world, right? Andrei Vasilevsky, it's been well documented what he's done in the playoffs, especially coming off a loss. I believe now it's 17 straight wins. Coming off a loss. You just can't beat him twice in a row. That's how good he is. Shesterkin for the Rangers was an Hart Trophy, which is the MVP in the NHL. He's a finalist for that, so he's one of 3 people that are going to be considered for the MVP. The last goalie to be a finalist for the Hart Trophy was Bobrovsky in 2017. So it's very rare for these kind of things to happen. So you have a battle-tested goalie in Vasilevsky and this guy who's probably the best in the world right now, Shesterkin. And you're not going to see 8-6 or maybe not even 4-2. You might see a lot of low-scoring games.
Yeah, that'll be tight.
Yeah.
So, Randy, we're in the thick of the playoffs. Like I said, 4 teams left, and it's been a busy NHL playoffs for you, right? You are many nights a dedicated resource from Elias to the NHL Network. And I was wondering, what is a night like that? You're logging on. You're solely looking at these playoff games. Tell me what a shift looks like for you these days.
Yeah, sure. So say there's a game on, so tonight, 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. We'll log on a few hours beforehand and let NHL Network, a group of people there, know that we're on. And when I say group of people, I mean like the researchers and their graphics people and some producers. So there's a pool of about 10 people that you want to check in with. And essentially, as things are unfolding throughout the night, you're trying to uncover some interesting facts and some storylines. And last night, with all the goals, I mean, there was no shortage of things with 2 goals in 9 seconds, another 2 goals in 36 seconds. I mean, it was the highest scoring game one in the penultimate round of the playoffs of all time. The 10th highest highest scoring playoff game of all time. Just tons of stuff. So you want to be able to feed all that stuff to NHL Network in real time, because they're building graphics for the intermissions. They're building graphics for their post-game shows. They're also putting stuff on their bottom line.
Yeah, this is instant, right?
Everything is instant. Yeah. So, a lot of what we do for other clients is provide context and, say like a page of notes before the game starts, kind of anticipating. But this is different. This is like reading and responding, reacting in real time, and coming up with these top 5 lists, top 10 lists, anything contextual that you, Jimmy, as the viewer, you're at home and you see something weird, like you might say, hey, this Shesterkin got 2 assists tonight, like he did a couple nights ago. How rare is that for a goalie to get 2 assists in a playoff game, right? And we look it up. He's the 5th goalie to ever do that, and here's the list, and bang, bang, bang. Next thing you know, it's on TV.
So that sounds really exciting. It sounds very stressful to me. But it's not for you, right? Because you've done this plenty. I know you did this for Elias even years ago for the Versus NBC. So you've got plenty of experience being in this high-paced atmosphere.
Yes. So I would say for about 20 years now, I've worked pretty closely. I like to say it's kind of like ground zero of the NHL playoffs, because whether it was whoever had the NHL playoff contract, for years it was Versus and NBC, and Elias had a seat at the table for those broadcasts. We were typically in the studio sitting next to whoever was the host, whether it was Bill Patrick or Liam McHugh in recent years, that kind of person, and kind of being the right-hand man, being able to provide stats as they went to commercial or coming back from commercial or in between periods and that kind of thing. So you're really in the fire, not just to report on the obvious things, but also try to come up with some good stats that might not be so obvious. Because sometimes you get like a 1-0 game and you're in the second period and you're like, well, what kind of stats can I give you?
Right. And so, are there certain challenges to doing that sort of fast-paced work for hockey? Because I think when I'm watching a baseball game, baseball fans love their stats, right? They're sacred numbers in the baseball stats world. There's just a lot of different stats where you can show whether a pitcher is in fine form or whether a hitter, you can use raw counting numbers, you can use on base, any number of ways you can be effective in baseball. I'm not so familiar with hockey stats, and I'm wondering, does that present a sort of unique challenge?
Yes, I think now where we have a bit of an advantage of being at Elias and doing this for so many years is we kind of know what is unusual or what kind of things might stick out, right? Like, for example, this Evander Kane, he scored his 13th goal in the playoffs last night. And what's unusual about him? Well, he's in his first year with the team. So right. You might go an extra layer. So it's not like McDavid doing it. It's a guy that they acquired. They brought him in. He's like blowing up for the team. Like just an amazing acquisition. So I think it's not just the stats, but kind of like going above and beyond, looking at where were they drafted or who did they play for previously? How did they do in the regular season? There was a guy last night, JT Compher for Colorado, scored 2 goals. He scored 2 goals in the previous game as well. But if you look at his regular season, he only scored 18 goals the whole year and only had 2 games the whole year where he scored more than 1 goal. So just very unusual. It's almost like a pattern breaking, like what's this guy doing and how unusual is it for a guy to be doing what he's doing? It's not unusual for a star to score 2 goals in back-to-back games.
Right.
For a guy that doesn't do it, and then to show up when the pressure is the highest and the checking is the highest, and supposedly the defense is supposed to be tight, but so you look for those patterns and you look for really what is really happening here and what's unusual about what's going on in this game.
Great. Well, I'm excited for the NHL playoffs, Randy. I know you are too. And if you're watching at home, you see an interesting stat, it's probably going to come from Randy in that deep in the thick of it there, right?
Well, hopefully so. But yes, thank you, Jimmy. Looking forward to watching it as well. And who knows what's going to happen tonight? we're saying it's going to be a tight game. For all we know, it could be another 7-7 game, and both Shesterkin and Vasilevsky get pulled. Just so unpredictable.
Yeah, could see a couple touchdowns. Randy, thanks so much for doing this. Hope to have you back again soon.
Well, thanks for having me, Jimmy. Really appreciate it. Thank you.